Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can we please settle down a little bit and get started? I've been informed this mic doesn't work, so we must project also because as loud as we can, I've been told by Tim that the other speakers, the other mics, apologies, will pick us up for what we're doing. A big welcome. Thank you so much for making your way to the Yapi van Zyl Auditorium here at the Central University of Technology. Whether you're joining in person or you're streaming in via Zoom, welcome to today's festivities. I hope you've managed to get some coffee inside of you so that you're nice and ready for some of the dialogue that's going to be taking place. We have some exceptional speakers here, and so during the Q&A session, I guess, use the opportunity to engage them, to pick their brains on the subject matter that they're going to be delving into. My name is Oleboheng Modze, and I'm deeply honored to be your facilitator this morning as we are celebrating Human Rights Day, although it took place last week. Today's celebrations at the institution are today. And I've been told the theme of today's event, and you'll see it on your program, is dignity, peace, and humanity within the context of Ubuntu. Now, I'm expected to also observe some protocol. We have some amazing speakers, like I said earlier on, but I don't want to be redundant because some of our notable guests are also people that are going to be taking on the podium in just a bit. Our acting VC, Professor David Ngidi, is going to set the tone for today's event with an official welcome and brief introduction on the significance and commemoration of Human Rights Day. He's stepping in Professor's shoes. And we know that he certainly can set the tone. So thank you so much for joining us, Prof. Ngidi. Today's keynote address is by an amazing academic, a revered academic. It's Professor Mokgobe Ramose, Professor of Philosophy at the University of Pretoria. Thank you so much for setting out time to come and speak to us. Now, please note, Professor Mokgobe has asked me to inform you that he has no issues with you recording his address. You can do so and put it on your personal platforms. In addition to this, he has some wonderful books on African philosophy with him. The price thereof is 180 Rand, he tells me. I will remind you again before he takes to the podium. There are also some other notable changes to the program. If you could just look at the program. Professor Ntswaki Malebu, Senior Director at the Center of Innovation for Teaching and Learning at CUT. She's streaming in. She is not here in person. She will go ahead of Katlego Ntaba, SRC President at Welkom's CUT campus. He's not present, but there is a representative for him today, Ms. Matshidiso Lebata. I'll tell you a bit more about her and other panelists as we go along. Mr. Thabang Keswa, he's the Free State head of the South African Human Rights Commission. Next to Professor Mkhobe there. Professor Lategan Leitens. Am I saying that? Litus. Apologies for that. He's a research professor in research education and postgraduate development at CUT. He will also be a part of the panelists. And then following the opening of the floor for remarks, I missed out someone. Just hang 10 for me. Mr. Thabo Mobela, president of the Bloemfontein campus, also has a representative. He's not here. Not yet. No representative as yet, so we'll put that on ice. We're also going to have, after an opening of the floor for remarks, Professor Opa Magola, acting director and officer of the VC, will wrap up today's proceedings. Is this still the case? We have another change over there. Nonetheless, things are continuing to go as planned. We hope that today's proceedings will leave you edified. But most importantly, today's speakers are here to spur thought as well, and that's why I encourage you to, during the Q&A session, to ensure that you take the opportunity to ask the questions that you've always been wanting to ask them. I want to note before I make way for Professor Ngidi that please take note of the timestamps on the side of the program. I wasn't born to be a police officer, and being a police of time is really not my favorite thing to do. So please take note of the time allocations there. We are a little bit late, but do take note of the time allocations and of course to deliver your individual addresses. Thank you so much and welcome. Happy Human Rights Day. Happy Human Rights Day to everyone around you. Coach.
Thank you, Program Director. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to say all protocol observed. And as the program director indicated, I'm standing here for Professor Pamela Dube, the Vice Chancellor and Principal, who is unfortunately attending another important event in Cape Town. Okay, my address, I'll try to be as brief as possible. I think I've got only 10 minutes. Just to welcome you all to this event. And I hope that it will be very, very fruitful event. I'll just give a little bit of flash, if I can put it that way, which is just maybe the progress that we've made so far at CUT regarding this important day. I will take it back to the 21 March, where the democratic government declared 21 March Human Rights Day to commemorate and honor those who fought for our liberation and the rights we enjoy today. At CUT, we have contributed significantly to the educating young people in this province as our constitutional obligation to the ideals of freedom, dignity, and Ubuntu. We have opened doors of learning to our youth to gain access to higher education opportunities they would not otherwise have elsewhere. We are delighted to participate in this Human Rights Month celebrations and support the ongoing dialogue on social justice and human rights issues within the context of collaborations with all stakeholders in the sector and the communities we serve. Working with the Human Rights Commission in the province is a matter of our constitutional obligation. Maybe I must mention that we have just signed the memorandum of understanding because I'm Mr. Five here, who was co-signing that MOU with our VC. So after all, our constitutional democracy recognizes the important functions of Chapter 9 institutions in protecting our democracy within the context of the new dispensation to forge like-minded institutions such as the Central University of Technology, Free State. We see the Commission as a true symbol of social justice, equality, and human dignity in our communities. And we want to play a role in supporting the ongoing dialogue on social justice and human rights issues within the university and the community we serve to shape a better future for next generation. Last week, as I've already indicated, we signed an MOU with the Human Rights Commission to cooperate and consult each other regarding the collaborative activities of good faith that shall govern the relationship between the parties. Furthermore, we committed to collaborating on agreed areas of research related to human rights, public administration, environmental justice, development, monitoring and evaluation, and other areas of mutual interest in promoting the objectives. Today, our collaboration yields positive outcomes for the Commission and the university. It forms a critical part of our endeavors to empower our students to ensure that these universities, this semester does not belong to our students only, but the rest of the communities we serve. Our mandate goes beyond the confines of our two campuses and the communities we serve. In conclusion, I wish to welcome you all to the 2023 Human Rights Celebration and congratulate all the role players who have made this day possible. The theme for this year is around dignity, peace, and humanity within the context of Ubuntu. Central University of Technology Free State has approved its transformation plan 2021 to 2025 in line with the university's vision 2030, which is about leading African University of Technology, shaping the future through innovation. This event will also provide an opportunity for university to amplify the conversation around curriculum renewal and transformation, and to also raise awareness of acceptance and invisibility of human rights, and to empower people to fight for their rights, particularly among young people. With those few words, I wish you all the best throughout the Human Rights Day commemoration, and I hope that all the deliberations and engagements will yield fruitful results. I thank you.
Very much to the acting VC, Professor David Nkisi. We do appreciate that introduction and that welcome. A notable mention as well to Dr. Gary Paul. I think he just stepped out, the VC responsible for resources and operations at CUT. It was one of the mentions I did not make earlier on. Now, first up on the program, it's Professor Mogobe Ramose. He is our keynote speaker today. He's a retired professor of philosophy in the country. He obtained his Doctor of Philosophy, cum laude, might I add, at the Catholic University of Louvain, Belgium in 1983. Where were you in 1983? He lectured at the universities of Zimbabwe, at the Catholic University of Brabant, named Tilburg University in the Netherlands, Venda, Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, as well as the University of South Africa. He served as a part-time associate professor at Sefako Makgato Health Sciences University's Department of Clinical Psychology, and is also associated as a researcher with many universities of Limpopo and the one at Pretoria as well. He's delivered many public lectures, including the one he's going to deliver today, locally and internationally. And of course, we are deeply honored to have him here. He has also authored a book. It is African Philosophy Through Ubuntu, written or published rather in 1999. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor. Can you give him a round of applause? While he's making his way up to the podium, I'm just reminding you that he said he has no problem if you were to record his address with your phone for your own public edification or to have on your public platforms. He's also selling one of his books here today. So we are fortunate to have you. Thank you so much.
Nyela. I see that this is not functioning. It complicates matters a little bit for me because I cannot speak very loud. So I'm going to do my best to speak as loudly I can, but please be not surprised because when I speak aloud, you will see me looking very angry, and please smile when that happens because it's a physical reaction beyond my control. I have tried many doctors and none of them has been able to help me not look angry when I speak loud. So please take the anger look as an invitation to smile. I should also want to thank everyone involved in the decision to invite me to be together with you today. I also would like to thank you very much for having decided to come to be present with us, either online or physically, as you are. I appreciate that very much because you could have chosen to be somewhere else, and you have decided, no, I'm going to be here. Really, and this is very much appreciated. My title for today is Ubuntu Meditations on Human Rights. Ubuntu Meditations on Human Rights. The result is that I will not give a scholarly lecture, and this is done purposely. No scholarly lecture. I will approach this in conversational, meditational fashion. If you want a scholarly lecture on this, you will find some of my publications around this where I debate with Pico della Mirandola, Immanuel Kant. So I'm not moving in that direction because it is already available. You will see it if you want to see a scholarly approach to this. What I propose to do is a very direct fixation of a critical gaze upon the everyday reality in this country and what it means in relation to the systematically elusive concept of human rights. Why do I call it systematically elusive? Way back in the history of Western culture, Western philosophy, and this is the context within which we are speaking, precisely for historical reasons. In this way back, there was talk about individual rights. Later, there was talk about the rights of men. And then there was also talk about the Declaration of the Rights of Men and Citizens. The women in France protested almost within a year. They know this declaration is not about us. So they had their own declaration. The Declaration of the Rights of Women and Citizens. Think that was enough? No. Then there was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And see, it's changing all the time, all kinds of talk. And then you find, as a result, a proliferation of rights. For example, the rights of children, the African Charter of Peoples and Human Rights, the rights of people to self-determination, the right of people with disabilities, even the right to die and the right. So a whole lot of proliferation of rights. How do we now need a rights non-proliferation treaty? Like we have a nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Now, because the rights are so much proliferating, I don't feel like I'm the boundary. Okay? But where is the boundary actually? The boundary lies in the simple question. Do all these rights not refer to one and the same human being in terms of DNA, in terms of physiology, and his story? Those who are familiar with my writing will be aware that my critique of history is that history is actually his story. It has been his story for a very long time. At a certain point, it made a concession quite reluctantly to her story. It is yet to accept that we must build our story. So these rights, proliferation of these rights, talk about these rights, actually emerges in this context of contestation. And what was the contestation about? What are we arguing about? Main point of argument is who and what is a human being? Who and what is a human being? Now, before the birth, point is that external appearances, just a look at your features, decided your value as a human just by looking at you. You know, when you remember Shakespeare's Macbeth, right from the beginning, just at the start of it, there is an interesting question. Who are these so withered And so while in your attire or appearance that look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet are on it. Live you, or are you odd that men be west? Those were the so-called apparitions. Shakespeare describes apparitions. They come from nowhere. So they are strange. They don't look like us human beings. So how can we change? How do we deal with it? Now that was not a new question, historically speaking. Already in Greek antiquity, that question was asked in such a way that just by looking at your external features, you were categorized either as an authentic human being or a sub-human being. One of the two, either an authentic human being or a sub-human being. And all sub-human beings were objects of enslavement. Because you are a human being, I am entitled to make you a slave. So racism was already born. Way back. Then, as a complement to this racism, came the idea of people without a beard, barbarians, the idea that other people are barbarians. You may recall that there is a debate mentioned that was happening in a hall like this, a very lively debate. And so Immanuel Kant was walking outside. And because he was a philosopher, he got curious. He decided, no, I must go and join that debate. So he was welcome. And when he came in, he found that among the people debating, there were some women. And then he expressed surprise. But those ones do not have beards. See, because philosophy was not for women. So, barbar, it even extended to the exclusion of women. So there was barbarism and civilization. Now they become complements of racism. And that was all? No. Then we have the appearance of Christianity. So Christianity also helps in dividing the world into two categories. Those who are authentic human beings and those who are sub-human beings. They can be elevated to the status of human beings, but that was a critical question, which was actually debated by the Spanish Dominicans. Very critical. Are they really human beings? Must not taken for granted. Oh, Victoria, Suarez, name them. They were there wondering, even if we are supposed to convert people into Christianity, are these entities, these apparitions that we meet in Africa, that we meet in Latin America, are they really human beings? No, but seriously. And at time, of course, the division was clear. They were believers on the one hand, those were Christians, and non-believers, if you like, the fidels and the infidels. So you see, what we have in this problematic of rights. I don't want to say human rights because they have been qualified so many times. Okay, so what really lies as problem is that you find this particular trinity. The trinity, racism, barbarism related to civilization, and Christianity. Of course, we must not forget Islam, but at this point, we are not Islam. It does not mean it is not better. It was committed, Islam, like Christianity, was committed to religicide, to the killing of religion of other people, just like Christianity. But as I say, let us pretend that I know for now that Islam does not feature. It features realistically and really. When you travel, you will see in many airports, especially in Africa, places for Islamic prayer. You will see our brothers, even when they are in the queue to catch the plane, they must rush because it is time to go and pray. They rather almost miss the plane, but they must pray. So, you see, in this situation I'm talking about Christianity, why it became a burden and a problem is that a particular Pope Nicholas V, way back in the 400s, decided to donate Africa without the prior knowledge and consent of the peoples of Africa. Don't need their consent, don't need their knowledge. Donate Africa to King Alfonso V of Portugal. This is yours. Mandate, convert those people, turn them into Christians. They don't want to become Christians. Don't worry, you have the right to commit what? Homicide. You have the right to commit what? Linguicide. You have the right to commit religicide and even terricide. Terricide means the taking away of the land or country of others by resort to ethically unjust. Now, this story you will find in a document published in the 1400s, issued in the 1400s by this Pope. It is called Romanus Pontifex. So you see, Africa was now already violated by this quartet of mortal sins. I say it's a quartet because there are 4 mortal sins committed against Africa. And these mortal sins live with Africa today. The mortal sins, for me to repeat, are epistemicide, linguicide, religicide, and terricide. So you should not be surprised when you see or hear that a certain Portuguese by the name of Bartolomeu Dias actually reached the tip of southern Africa and named it the Cape of Storms. He named it the Cape of Storms, right there at the junction or at the meeting point between the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. The 2 oceans meet, but they never slide to one another. One refuses to beat the other, and yet they meet. So later on, the same Cape of Storms was renamed by the Dutch through the voice of Van Dyck, and it was called the Cape of Good Hope. I'm sure you see the soya milk in the supermarkets, Good Hope, in memory of this particular invasion. Okay? So even if it was named the Cave of Good Hope, it actually did not subdue the storms experienced by Bartholomew Dias. And so we continue today to live with the storms and the hopes of yesterday. And so we are gathered here today in the province renamed the Free State. It is renamed the Free State. Why? Why is it free? Well, it is free. How do we answer? Is this following? Free from what? Free State. Free from what? Free for what? Is the state referred to an indigenous African concept of state? Or is it a concept of state based on Western epistemology? We are in the free state. It is renamed. The renaming is simply the omission of the orange. There was orange before. Orange, which preceded the Free State. What did the orange have to do with the name of the conqueror republics established in a country called South Africa? What did orange? I mean, we know about oranges from CBDA. What did orange have to do with it? And why was the orange deleted or omitted to rename this province just only Free State? You know, the registrations in the past were OFS. Now it is FS. We must question, we must develop some kind of curiosity. So we find that orange has got to do with the French noble house, the House of Orange-Nassau. It had very strong connections with the Dutch because of Prince William of Orange, who subsequently became king of the Netherlands. And so it should come as no surprise that the Dutch motto is actually in French. Je maintiendrai. I will maintain. The alliance between F and KL should also be understood against the spectrum. So you see, the significance of orange is political. It is the expression of conviction, commitment, and loyalty to the West, even though the historical heirs to Western culture live in a country called South Africa. This fixation to the West culminated in the establishment of the Union of South Africa. According to a learned jurist who also belonged to this camp of the conqueror, his name is Appel, and he contributed an article to a learned book edited by very famous and important jurists in conqueror South African culture, namely Professor Hallo and Professor Ellison Khan. What was the title of their book? South Africa, the development of its laws and constitution. In that book, you find also the article of Heppel. They saw it, they were editors. They saw it, they approved. What did Heppel say? Heppel states, among other things, that the Union of South Africa was constructed upon the right of conquest. The right of conquest. So you see, the right of conquest is a juridical concept. It is ethical question. Just as we can question the right of the Pope to donate a country and its people to another without the prior consent and knowledge of those people, and even sanction violence against them, we can also question here the technical meaning of the right of conquest. Not go too many details except to say that the right of conquest, according to the law of the conqueror, allows what they call in their way. That's why I'm now going to show that actually I'm also a victim of limit sign. Because at the time of our studies, our language is so we were compelled to study and learn Latin. So they even you couldn't proceed with your LLB studies till and unless you satisfy the requirement that you know some Latin. So on the basis of that compulsion, I'm able to tell you that their principle with regard to the right of conquest is called ex injuria jus origin, meaning out of an injury to another, a right arises. But then it is contrasted and contradicted by another principle, named ex injuria jus non origin. Out of an injury to another, a right does not arise. We are here in a country based on the right of conquest. Until today, we are here in a country established on the right of conquest. That is where we are. And in this very country, where this is prevailing, it means that the four original quartet of violations of the human rights, now let me call it, of the human rights of the indigenous peoples, not only of this country, designated by geographic, it's named in terms of geographic designation, to show that there were no people there. You know, you didn't find people, you found yourself in the south of Africa, but you did not find anyone else, except, of course, those that you couldn't see. Those were not human beings. So, built upon this right conquest, you have the successor constitution of 1961, you have the successor constitution of 1983, and now you have the successor constitutions of 1993, and finally the constitution of 1996. When you look at the Constitution of 1996, it reaffirms the four original sins. Because when you don't read it seriously, look at it first and then study it properly. When you look, you will find that Ubuntu is not there. Totally and completely. From page 1 to the last, there is no Ubuntu. Ubuntu has been expelled. Abantu have been excluded. We are an expelled and an excluded people from a constitutional dispensation that is supposed to be ours. Sesikhoshiwe, ratiwe, ripubile. Elisa ripuba, ho tlalwang a re teng. Hello, rale a ripuba. Ntlha re ipone. A mirror. When you reflect, you stand in front of the mirror. Must reflect your image. The day it reflects a giraffe instead of yourself, either there's something wrong with the mirror or your eyesight. Okay? So we have a constitution which has expelled Abantu, which excludes Abantu. Of course, there are some Abantu who have challenged this expansion. There are some who have challenged. And there are others within the camp of the conqueror who actually have decided to challenge the same constitution because it is a departure from India's small view, Western superiority and domination. And what did they do? To express this concretely, they decided to demand a country within a country called Orania. You must look at the ear all the time. You have Mongol ear, you have Rus ear, you have Azan ear, you have Zam ear. You see the ear. So they are nostalgic. Orania is nostalgia for the house of Orange. Which one? See, it's nostalgia for that. Because it is nostalgia for that, and we don't have it, it must be reinstated. It must be reinstated. So there are others, not only within the camp of the conquered people, but within the camp of the conqueror itself. So you must understand Orania is a serious protest against this constitutional dispensation. So I see that time is arrived. Okay. So you can see that we have the moral obligation. We have the intellectual and scientific obligation to correct this wrong. We must find Abantu because they are somewhere else. The majority of Abantu are living Komikuku. We are living in Amatuchombe. That's where we are. We are sleeping in the streets by night. Just walk, whether it is here, Polokwane, Pretoria, Johannesburg, walk by night and just count the free hotels without toilets. There are free hotels without toilets. People sleeping there because they are called homeless. How can you be homeless in your home? Can you? We are there. When you move around in Matoto, Tembisa, Mamelodi, Kayenita, can you hear them nicely? What do you see? Sewage water running wild. What is people selling food? Is that when you talk about human dignity, how why can you leave people to live in places like how come you allow that it be so? How come? How really? What are you thinking? Well, part of the problem is this, it's because those who create that condition hardly or rarely visit this. They see my mother, your mother, or your sister, my whoever coming to work for them and going back home. Home to where they don't want to go. Whether she will arrive safely and come back the next day, atamutswara po. But they are not with abiding to in reality. They're not Avanameli taxi, which you and I take because it's a metered taxi. They will take Uber because they can be alone in the taxi. We must be squeezed. We are not sure if we will reach home in that taxi. We are not sure. And you can see, you can't even ask the driver, hey, Daddy, can you buy a seat? How can you ask for a receipt from the taxi driver? Or I want to account Kinyaka but they want a receipt. Even you, it's quite like that the driver does not even know how to drive, let alone the fact that they never keep receipts because repeal a law. It's meter. You see, so our life experience every day contradicts all these very nice theories and treatises. That's why I didn't want to talk about Canto, Pico della Milandora. We must lose here. Now, Ravaleva can live to death and be fine. Kimanya kupila kudichi. Really? So let us understand that to talk about human dignity and human rights when some are living in the lush, luxurious suburbs, while the largest majority lives in secluded squat in the cuckoo, in Dojo place. When we talk human dignity and human rights in this context, we are actually insulting the intelligence of the inhabitants of those places. We are rogue and not talking sense. And so our ontological home has been and continues to be contested by his story. Remember, his story is responsible for this. his stone is responsible for the construction and the mushrooming of Nkuku. It is responsible for poverty, hunger, and preventable deaths. Is responsible. Someone would say, I'm really not responsible. But you cannot say no to that, because in every cause there are those who will go astray and right into the milk when in fact they should be cautious flies. So what is Ubuntu saying? What Ubuntu learn has got something to tell us. Ubuntu tells us, and I'm gonna cite 3-4 proverbs and I will stop. More conversant with Northern Sotho, although I understand other indigenous languages. So I will cite these proverbs from Northern Sotho. And those who like to follow the explanation of this in Northern Sotho, they will find it in a book by Rakoma, Diema, Lidika, Sadu, Diema, Lidika, Jasisutu, Sadu. One of the proverbs that informs Abantu philosophy is that Livitalakala, Taliti, Livitalakala, Taliti, to die from hunger in an African cultural philosophical context, that is an impossibility. Well, we reject that, we refuse it. And we know the practice. We know the practice that people do their best to make sure that you and I, we do our best that one of us does not die of hunger. We will do something. And our urge to do something is also inspired by another proverb. The proverb is Bana ba motho ba ngwatohana hlokwana ya tshidi. Na ba motho ba ngwatohana hlokwana ya tshidi. Now analyze this proverb very carefully. Our wise ancestors were not blind to the fact that the body of the locust is bigger than its head. When you look at the locust, you see immediately that the head is smaller and the body is bigger. So the proverb translated into English, children of the same family share the head of the locust. Now, did our ancestors not find it better that we actually should share the body of the locust because it is bigger? No. They want you to understand that sharing to give another life is so ethically important that you even ought to share the smallest and the least that you have, because it will pinch you. It pinches you when you share from the very least that you have. It's a pinch. It's proper giving. It's proper life giving when you do it. When you share the body, you are exercising charity. We are not saying charity I do, but charity does not answer the fundamental question of justice. It relieves you, but it postpones the solution. So that is how you understand. Say, Masaho, Banabamo, Pamatuana, Kawan, Yachi. The last one, which also you will find in the book, ke feta komu utwaremu komu until today. So many of us society represents wealth. So what it means is you are ethically obliged to close your eyes when you see wealth, pass wealth, and make sure you save and preserve human life. That is wealth is not number one. Now, all that I have said about Machochombe, this is finally a contradiction of these three, because the logic of economics and politics that underlies our social relations today is based on the opposite of Vitakomo. Vitamoto Utswareko. You see it every day. Go to the supermarkets towards the closing time. What do? In the past, they were selling what they sold, what was remaining cheap. Now, all of a sudden, they but the large don't want you to leave. But we don't pay them enough. Our team, what is that? How can you throw away food and tell us you're still respecting human dignity? You have one of the best constitutions upon this planet. Constitution Yama. How is it best when it violates these fundamental tenets of Ubuntu? So you see, in conclusion, I want to submit that human dignity that is nice, delicious, and sweet is distasteful to the vast majority of the wretched of the earth. Denied the right to food in practice. The denial is outright rejection of the evidence that Mother Earth is the ontological panel. Make it simple. It is the bread basket. Panel is a bread basket. It is the bread basket of all the children. I will repeat. Mother Earth is the ontological panel of all her children. Contemporary science has confirmed that at the DNA level, we are 99.9% identical. The scientists who issued the genome report did not use the word identical by accident, because the next sentence uses the word similar. So they did not use the word identical by accident. And so if we take our kinship at the DNA level serious, we have only one conclusion to draw. That is, we belong to one large human family. Yet, we are divided by absurd irrationality, continuing to prove that quite often we are mere beasts in seas. Thank you for your attention.
We'll give him another round of applause. much, Professor Mokgobe Ramose. Thank you so much for that keynote address titled Ubuntu Meditations on Human Rights. It's a travesty that our constitution is heralded as one of the best in the world, yet it excludes Abantu, as he so aptly said. So let us take up the challenge and correct this wrong in our own little corners in the world. As we continue to listen to each speaker, let's reflect on what are we doing to correct this wrong. Professor, I'm also going to digress. I want to introduce you to Siamo Malachi. He's an activist. He was telling me outside that he has cited your work in his own academic work. And that is why he's here. He's here for you, especially. So there's the introduction. It shows that your work is the influence of your work, the magnitude of it. We appreciate you. Now, I've already introduced today's panelists at the start of the session, so I'm going to make way for Professor Ntswaki Malebo, Senior Director at the Center of Innovation and Teaching and Learning at CUT. She's streaming in, she's not present in the Yapi Fundel auditorium. She asked to carry out her proceedings at 10:40. You know what, Prof, it is 10:40, so we're on time. All right, so
Thank you.
Yes. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Prof,
and
a little intro on you first. Okay, let me just do a little intro on you quickly. Professor Ntswaki Malebo holds a PhD in microbiology from the University of the Free State. She also has a postgraduate diploma in higher education from Rhodes University, so she's a rodent as well. She has a diploma in leadership development from Stellenbosch University. She's currently appointed as the Senior Director at the Center for Innovation and Learning and Teaching here at CUT. She's an NRF grant holder, registered as a professional natural scientist. She's currently involved in academic staff development. She's a project coordinator for the Higher Education, Learning and Teaching Association of South Africa Academic Leaders Special Interest Group. It is a mouthful. It is a long bio. It proves to how exceptional she is. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good morning, and thank you to the program director. Good morning to the acting VC, Professor Ngidi, all executives present in the Yapi Fundel, our deans, all senior managers, student leaders, colleagues, students, all protocol observed, and a special good morning to our keynote speaker, Prof. Ramose. It is such an honor to share this platform with you, Prof. And thank you for the speech this morning. I think, there was so much that I wanted to say, but I think you have said quite a mouthful. You've given us a lot to reflect on. So I'm just going to say a few words from my side, all the way from Cape Town. I'll try I'm mindful of time that we are running behind, and I'll try to shorten my speech a little bit. From my side, I reflected this morning, and as I was writing my speech as well, the commemoration of Human Rights Day for me personally as a Black female academic, and I really stress being Black and being female, not because I am trying to make people uncomfortable, but it's because every time I walk inside a room, the first thing they see before they can even read my bio is this Black female, before I can even announce myself as an academic. So I'm very proud of being a Black female academic. And I am very proud also, as I commemorate Human Rights Day, that I note with deep appreciation that if it wasn't for the blood that was shed and the resilience of my people to continuously fight for our recognition as a people, I wouldn't be where I am. So I am very, very proud to acknowledge that we stand on the shoulders of those that came before us, who kept really fighting for this privilege and for this honor for us to speak in platforms such as these. So I am really grateful, and I note that in my country, there were many lives that were lost for this freedom and the opportunities that I have and that my future generations will also have. The theme for this particular engagement and this seminar speaks to the philosophy of Ubuntu. And there is a citation that I took from Makutu in her dissertation, and who argues that dignity, humanity, and freedom are not to be separated for Ubuntu because they are inherently part of Ubuntu. So if we start talking about Ubuntu, then we are embedding dignity, we are embedding humanity, we are embedding freedom. So that is the philosophy of Ubuntu. This Ubuntu philosophy, I think it does really underpin our own rationality as Africans. I think Prof shared some of our, some of the maele to show how we always thought about the other as African people, that we always, we do not only see ourselves, but we always think about the other. We always are mindful also about the other. So it is really an important philosophy that we really embrace as a university, that we embrace as an institution. And I think it was important for us, even this morning, to truly reflect on what we mean when we talk about Ubuntu, and not list it as one of our core values without truly understanding what is it when we talk about Ubuntu, what do we really mean? So we talk about human dignity, we talk about humanity, we talk about freedom, we talk about truly seeing the other. It highlights then for me that dignity, peace, and humanity cannot be separated for Ubuntu. So for us as a university, what does it mean when we adopt Ubuntu as a core value? It means that as a university, we place dignity and humanity at the center. Then becomes pertinent for us to really continuously know that in everything that we do, humanity and dignity and peace is at the center of what we should be doing as a higher education institution. We have to really acknowledge that as we move forward as a university, we are addressing what was previously a legacy of separate development. It still persists within us, but I think we have to be more rigorous to really address those issues that are still obvious, that are still prevalent within our university. So dignity means that all people are considered equal, that preferential treatment does not have to be in place within our organizations, and that all human rights have to be respected and all human beings have to be seen. And I really emphasize being seen and being acknowledged, because sometimes people see you, but you are really not acknowledged. We don't acknowledge one another. And it is important that as we speak about Ubuntu, as we speak about human rights, as we speak about dignity, we also speak about acknowledging each and every human being in our service within the university and in every aspect of teaching, learning, even development of curricula, that we need to really acknowledge others. To cement this commitment, Prof. Ngidi mentioned earlier that we have a transformation plan in place with really strong goals to take us to where we want to be, to ensure responsiveness to injustices of the past. So I would like to reflect on some of these. I won't reflect on the entire plan, but I will just look at one or two things that the university has committed to, and where we see progress, but also where we see, where there's lack of progress or there is slow progress in our view. I want to start with a quote as I reflect on these by our former president, President Nelson Mandela, who said, "Education is the great engine of personal development. It is through education that the daughter of a peasant can become a doctor, that the son of a mine worker can become a head of a mine, that a child of a farm worker can become the president of a great nation. It is what we make out of what we have, not what we are given, that separates one person from another." So despite all of these things that we have done, despite our plans, despite these great quotes that are coming from our former statesmen, it is clear, with clear policies to support gender equity or gender equality within the university, within our organizations, whether it's I know in the public sector that the government is really doing well with top positions that are where we see a lot of women occupying those spaces. But in the private sector, in some universities, we still observe that, these are still highly male dominated. An article recently in the Mail and Guardian that was in 2022 by Naidu, it showed that when it comes to vice chancellor appointments, I think we as CUT have really done well. But in South Africa, as in general, African males, they still dominate, and female candidates fail to make it past the shortlisting stage. This is despite the stats from the Department of Higher Education and Training showing that more women graduate than men. So we still have those particular challenges. We see a lot of females coming into the higher education sector, but when you go up to the higher echelons, even in terms of postgraduate, our postgraduate pipeline at master's and PhD level, you see less and less women. And this is something that we need to really address as a university, as an institution of higher learning. What also compounds or even makes a situation worse within our sector. We see this within universities, we see this in private sector as well, are the issues of salary disparities. We talk about human dignity, we talk about women and gender equity, but we still see gaps, we still see so many salary disparities, we still persist within South Africa, with African women still experiencing a particular gap. So according to IOL and studies that have been done by Bosch and Barrett, many others, women earn up to 35% less, 35% less than men for doing work of equal value. Yet nearly 38% of households in South Africa are dependent on an income that a woman brings home. So those are still scary statistics that we are still observing, that are still, haunting us as women in the workplace. Even highly educated and qualified middle-class women, especially those working in the private sector, they are still finding it difficult to escape the gender pay gap, disparities. And in this article, they refer to the old boys network that still favors the male counterparts. So these are the things that we pick up in stats, and these are the issues that I felt strongly that we need to bring them to the fore as we celebrate Human Rights Day. The Ministerial Task Team on the Recruitment, Retention, and Progression of Black South African Academics still highlights the challenges that persist with postgraduate pipelines that I've mentioned at South African universities, alienating institutional cultures, and lack of support despite institutions of higher learning adopting Ubuntu as one of their core values. So when I said we need to be seen, we need to be acknowledged, this is what I was talking about, that we need to address those alienating cultures. These alienating cultures, they are not only experienced by women in higher education. These alienating cultures are experienced by most of our students as well, because the curriculum still excludes African knowledges. Students do not see their history within the curricula that we teach within the text that we select, we still have a long way to go. With access to higher education provided for most of our students, success is still elusive. And this is demonstrated by various Department of Higher Education and Training reports and studies which have been carried out by people like Professor Scott to show that for most African students who come into higher education, half don't make it. And it's due to various factors that affect our students. Our students still live far from institutions of higher learning. Our universities do not have sufficient residences to accommodate increasing student numbers, and this affects our students. And when we come to curricula, what is taught in the classroom is still the same. This indicates lack of change, lack of transformation, despite policies such as the White Paper 3, the White Paper on Post-School Education, advocating for curriculum renewal and transformation and inclusion of other forms of knowledge. This is what we also advocate for in our own transformation plan, that we have to acknowledge other forms of knowledges that exist within our communities, that other knowledges that have been marginalized and silenced for too long have to be brought into our curriculum and have to be taught to our students. And if we talk about comprehensive internationalization, we are also talking about bringing the African voice into those engagements and discussions with our counterparts. We need to really deal and address and go deeper into the issue of institutional cultures that are still alienating for African students, even though we are adopting Ubuntu. And I want to also, borrow from Prof to say, you cannot talk about Ubuntu and you leave Abantu behind. So we also have to really do that, to ensure that we bring others, along, we bring our students along, sure that no one feels alienated. We make sure that our students, our staff are taken care of, and all of these issues are addressed. We still struggle with graduates who cannot enter the job market. Still, it speaks to our lack, that our curriculum is no longer responsive, and we need to really go back, reflect, see what needs to be done in order to have responsive curricula, so that we don't have a lot of graduates standing at the robots begging for jobs while we could have addressed these issues. We still have communities that Prof referred to who are still living in Amkyokyombe, even though there are universities around them. We need to do more in terms of community engagement so that we focus on work that will have impact in the society and not only benefit us as academics and getting up the ranks publishing in prestigious journals and getting university rankings, but we forget that whatever we do in terms of research must have meaningful impact to those around our societies. So, as I said, I am mindful of time, and I see that I'm almost over close to my 15 minutes. So I want to just wrap up with the following: that we have a responsibility as a university that has adopted Ubuntu as a core value of the university to address issues of gender equality. As I've mentioned in the stats, 35% of women in South Africa, including our own university, still experience that pay gap, even though 38% of households in South Africa are depending on an income from females. So we have to do better as a university. We also view this as a form of exclusion, as a form of gender-based violence if these things are not addressed. We should work harder as a university, as an institution of higher learning, to ensure curriculum responsiveness, not only for the world of work, but for communities around us. We can no longer engage in research for prestige, but we need to work with communities. We need to acknowledge that knowledge that they also possess can respond to some of their challenges. They understand also their environment a little bit better. There is a misconception that we often make when we talk about big issues around the world, such as climate change. We assume our communities are not aware. We assume that our communities do not know. There is a misconception that our indigenous knowledge systems and the way that people respond to all of these challenges is redundant, it's stagnant, it does not evolve. You will be very surprised once you start engaging with people on the lower ground. And I think these are the types of research that we need to engage in order to be responsive to societal challenges. We also need to interrogate our collaborations with others, especially international partners. We should not find ourselves in a situation where Africans are still subject of research rather than being the voice that amplifies African epistemologies and philosophies. So as we celebrate Human Rights Day, even though it is late, as we celebrate embracing Ubuntu within the university, within the Central University of Technology, my plea is that we cannot celebrate Ubuntu and leave behind Abantu. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Professor Malebo. We really do appreciate your presence coming in all the way from Cape Town. Give her another round. Enthusiasm. Do it twice. We also thank you for your transparency on the state of transformation here at the Central University of Technology. But as an outsider, I'm going to ask the students who are present today, do you feel that enough is being done by this institution that you are a part of to place Ubuntu at the center of your institution? Think about it, pause on it, write down your question. There is a Q&A session that is on the web. Up next, Katlego Ntaba, SOC president at Welkom CUT campus, was supposed to deliver his address, but he's also not present. So Ms. Masidiso Lebata is going to read out his address. Ms. Lebata is an SRC Constitution and Legal Affairs Officer at the Welkom campus. She's non-gender conforming, so I shouldn't say she. It's written here, it's not my fault. They are the founder of LGBTIQA Instruction at Welkom campus. They are LGBTQI activists. They are also a final year student in office management and technology. Let's welcome them.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Standing here, Program Director has already introduced me. I feel like President should have warned me about this whole session. That I'll be sitting with important people. I'm standing here today commemorating Human Rights Day. Let me start first by mourning the passing of a young lesbian female who was murdered and buried in a shallow grave in Philadelphia. Can you please mourn with your family? The program director has already indicated that the president won't be here with us today. He's attending our Indemnity issues. So hopefully, will come with a positive outcome. And again, all the speakers have already observed the protocol, so and have already introduced our important guests today. So let me observe the protocol again. President has sent the speech, which we all know what transpired in Sharpeville, March 21, 1960. The tragic event served as a turning point in the struggle against apartheid and highlighted the need for greater respect of human rights in South Africa. It led to increased international pressure on the South African government to end apartheid and to promote the greater equality and justice for all South Africans. Today, Human Rights Day is an opportunity for us to reflect on the progress we have made towards achieving greater respect for human rights in South Africa and to acknowledge the ongoing challenges we still face. It is a day to celebrate the rights and freedoms that we have fought for, to reaffirm our commitment to promoting human rights for all. We must continue to work towards creating a more just and equitable society where every person is valued in their human rights, are protected and respected. As we all know, today's theme is dignity, peace, and humanity within the context of Ubuntu. There are three concepts that are central to the African philosophy of Ubuntu, which is dignity, peace, and humanity. Ubuntu is a philosophy that emphasizes the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of human relationships in building strong, healthy communities. Dignity is the first concept that I want to discuss. Every human being deserves to be treated with respect and kindness, regardless of their background or circumstances. In the context of Ubuntu, dignity is a fundamental aspect of human existence. As the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu once said, a person is a person for other persons. This code emphasizes the importance of human relationships and the interconnectedness of all the people. Umuntu, umuntu ngabantu. The second concept I want to discuss is peace. In Ubuntu, peace is not just an absence of conflict, but rather the presence of justice and the recognition of human dignity. We cannot have true peace without justice and equity of all individuals. And as late Nelson Mandela once said that, if you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy, then becomes your partner. Finally, the humanity. Humanity is essential to a philosophy of Ubuntu. Humanity recognizes that we are all connected, and that is through our shared humanity that we can build strong, healthy communities. And again, the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu once said that my humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together. This code reminds us that our shared humanity is more important than any other differences we have. Let us remember the importance of dignity, peace, and humanity within the context of Ubuntu. Let us recognize that we are all connected and that it is through our shared humanity that we can build strong, healthy communities. And again, late Archbishop Desmond Tutu once said that we are made for goodness, we are made for love, we are made for friendliness, we are made for all the beautiful things that you and I know. We are made to tell the world that there are no outsiders. All are welcome. Black, white, red, yellow. Rich, poor, educated, not educated, male, female, gays, lesbians, bisexual, transgenders. We are all belonging to this female, this human female. Most importantly, we must remember what our people went through in this godforsaken world. One must say that our utmost weakness as indigenous people was Ubuntu. This was evident from the point of interaction between Jan van Riebeeck and the Khoisan, who showered us with the Ubuntu. However, their pure Ubuntu led to the dismantling of their communities, slavery and death. And again, the capture of the Democratic Republic of Congo Democratic Republic of Congo President Patrice Lumumba was another tragic event in our history. Sadly, we have only retrieved this history from the West, which is an insult to our African ancestors. And we, as the Black people, we are still regarded as non-citizens in the dark shadows of Parliament. Now, African countries are busy meddling in Western wars, whilst our countries are being dismantled each and every day. There are wars in Africa, but there's silence in Africa. The poor are continuing to be poor. The rich are continuing to be richer. The oppressed are continuing to be oppressed. Africa is not yet free from the West. And again, a quote from the Great of Revolution, the founder of African Union, the greatest African leader, Muammar Gaddafi, son of the African soil, once said that Africa must unite or perish. We cannot afford to remain divided and weak in the face of our enemies. Thank you very much. This was the speech from the president.
Thank you, Masiso Lebatla. We're well over halfway, almost there for reading out Katleo Ndaba's address. To echo that address, we're better together than we are divided. Let's make way now for Thabang Kheswa. He's the Free State head of the South African Human Rights Commission. He is in possession of an LLB degree. He's an accredited mediator and attorney of the High Court of SA with over 13 years experience. And of course, his areas of practice and expertise on human rights and constitutional law. Let's make it.
Program Director, thank you very much for those introductory words. I want to start my address a bit differently. I prepared a very long speech. I realize my time is very limited. Acting Vice Chancellor, Professor Ngidi, my fellow panelists, delegates who are here, students especially, ladies and gentlemen, a very good day to you all. When Professor introduced and gave the purpose of today, he said recently the Central University of Technology State entered into a memorandum of understanding with South African Human Rights Commission. One of the issues that we want to collaborate on is information sharing, advocacy activities, research, and others. We are going to set and draw a plan on how we are going to work with the university. That when you look at advocacy, we need to look at issues affecting us as a people, South Africa. One of the issues that we pick up every day when we do our work as South African Human Rights. And I said this last week as we were signing the MOU, that South Africans don't know the Constitution, especially young people.
They do not know or understand Bill of Rights, how to use the rights, and what are the responsibilities attached to all those rights. So we are going to start internally to start talking about it. I'm very much encouraged by the attendance today, especially of students. I don't know what organizers, professor, said to the students for them to come and sit here and listen to this often so-called boring topics of constitution, human rights. Young people are not interested in those things. But I'm very much encouraged. In fact, I want to say to you, you should give yourselves a big round of applause for taking time from your studies, your busy life, to come and sit here and listen to all these old and boring people. But they are talking about issues that are very important for our country. Issues that we as you as young people should take forth and lead. Our country is going through the most. It's going through a lot of things, and it needs its youth to step up and learn, take interest in these issues, so that tomorrow we contribute as professionals, we contribute to the development agenda of this country. We have people who are studying to be teachers, we have people who are studying to be engineers, all sorts of professions. But I want to say, all of us, each and every one of us, as we go out there, we all subscribe to the Constitution. It's the supreme law of the country. Whether you are a teacher, you'll be dealing with the rights of young people that you need to protect, promote, and monitor every day. So you need to take interest in what the Constitution says about the rights of children. It's not just about our technical know-how or skills that we are here to learn, but we need to take interest in issues. Human Rights Day in South Africa means a lot. It's time for us to reflect, commemorate, and remember those who lost their lives fighting for this democracy that we are enjoying. How can we collectively and individually contribute in our little corners to ensure that we improve the lives of people out there? So I'm not going to go into details of what is South Africa. For what do you call it? Independent Electoral Commission, IEC, Public Protector, South African Human Rights Commission, Auditor General, Commission for Gender Equality, Commission that is responsible for cultural and linguistic rights. Big interest on what are their different mandates. What do they do? To what extent are they independent from government? Because there's often confusion that these are government entities. But we are not government, but we are state institutions. Get to learn about what is the difference between the state and government. Because we are not government. Why? That's why we are able to hold government accountable as a state institution. So I'm not going to explain all those mandates. Please go and read the Constitution. It will tell you more about human rights. And as we go in this journey that we have started this year, we are going to train a lot of professionals who know more about the rights and the Constitution. Now, my question for the day is a difficult one that I have to answer. How curriculum transformation can be used to restore human dignity and humanity. How can we have curriculum that responds to the needs of our country? How can we have curriculum that is aligned with the unique dynamics of the country, looking at the history of this country? And I want to assume that I was tasked to speak about this as it relates to higher education levels. But I want to take it a bit back, because the curriculum or transformation agenda has to start somewhere if we want. It can't start at the higher education level. So firstly, the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa itself provides the basis for the reform and transformation of curriculum in South Africa. It is a tool upon which the project and process of transformation must be. Curriculum transformation is a project that has been necessary in our country, and it must bridge the gap, a man-made gap, between the privileged and the less privileged in our country. It must be a process that looks at policy reforms, mainly to ensure access to education for those who were previously excluded. And because we say in the past, education was used as a political tool to divide society and create certain form of identity and class among the people. And in our case, Black majority were at the receiving end of this divide. They were reduced to being uncivilized class of people who did not have or did not deserve quality education. A clear disregard of human dignity. If we want the project of curriculum transformation to respond to the question of human dignity and the restoration of humanity in our country, we must design education system that is inclusive, that responds to the needs of our people, and that is aligned to the dynamics of our country, and must respond to the challenges we face as a country, challenges like unemployment, poverty, inequality, and so forth. It must provide an opportunity for more economic participation by the majority of the people of this country, especially the previously disadvantaged and youth. The young people must therefore be trained to be pioneers of change and influence positive attitudes and values for our communities. We would have addressed the question of restoration of dignity and humanity if we produce professionals who possess skills relevant to the critical developmental areas that are unique and specific to our country. We can talk science, we can talk technology, we can talk governance, we can talk government, we can talk local government. That is much of the challenge in our country. We must produce technicians, engineers, who will be able to address challenges that we experience at that level. Many of our challenges are experienced at the local level of our community. Water quality challenge. Should have engineers who are able to look into water quality in our communities. We should have engineers that look at the infrastructure that is there at local level, where the people live. That's where the services are first accessed. That's where you have to start if you want to restore the dignity of the people. So institutions of higher learning must produce professionals that participate there. I was encouraged when I learned and saw one of the former students of this university, who is now a senior manager for engineering services at a local municipality called Machawe local. His name is Mr. Zona Utomi. He's from this. He's leading the infrastructure department of the municipality. So we must guard against producing graduates who are unemployable or whose skills are not responsive to the needs of the student. Ladies and gentlemen, for us at any level of education, transformation will be when we talk or when it comes to touching the very core of who we are as a people. When it promotes our foundational values, as indicated, Ubuntu, and promotes principles that we had or we had when we saw the dawn of this democracy. Principles like unity in our diversity, and that South Africa belongs to all. It is almost difficult or impossible, Acting Vice Chancellor, to speak about curriculum transformation without talking about the importance of language and language development, especially indigenous language. I'm not in any way saying our indigenous languages are not developed, but I'm talking about development as far as they relate or they align to the education system. In my view, the education system, for it to fully transform, the project must start at early childhood development and move gradually to higher education. Some scholars call this project writings about decolonization of education or Africanization of education in our country, to unlearn some of the things that have been imposed on us in our mother tongue. We know education in our country was, or the system, medium of instruction is on 2 languages in our country. And we have 11 official languages. It's either you are taught in English, which itself was used as a tool for oppression by a colonial master, or you learn in Afrikaans, which also was used as a tool by the apartheid system. And you don't learn in mother tongue. Those 2 languages were developed over centuries and decades for them to be now fully developed, and that we can all learn through. So when I talk about early childhood development and language development, I talk about starting our indigenous languages and education from early childhood development up to this level. We can't start at this level. It is not easy. It can't be possible. Imagine starting to learn in your mother tongue now here at the Central University of Technology some of the mathematics or some of science subjects. It's not going to be. So we have to start somewhere if we want to be successful over the road. Let's also give ourselves time to develop our languages like those oppressors who did over a period of time. Also because they imposed. Therefore, in closing, I want to say we must be patient with ourselves and afford ourselves time and allocate resources for the development of these indigenous languages if we want to achieve transformation for our curriculum and education in general. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, we want to indicate that institutions of higher learning are very important in this agenda that we want to transform the education system. And working together with all relevant partners like South African Human Rights Commission, it should be possible for us to achieve that. So for now, let me say thank you very much for this opportunity. And I reiterate my commitment again that you are not seeing the last, it's not the last time you see this, but we are going to work together around the two campuses of Central University of Technology to educate you more about human rights, the importance of these rights, like human dignity. Human dignity cuts across all the rights in the Constitution or Bill of Rights. We say you have that right by virtue of being human. It's one of the rights that cannot be limited like other rights. Because if you limit human rights or take dignity from a human, what is the human justice? That was the apartheid government that used to strip people of their dignity. But the democratic government promotes it and promotes the fact that we all have to understand that all our rights are equal and that each and every right is as important as the next one, and that we should not elevate our own individual rights over other rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keswan, Free State Head of the South African Human Rights Commission, for his insights on how curriculum transformation can help restore human dignity in our very unique country. A quick show of hands, how many of us have actually read the Constitution of the country? Small little finger going up. Come on, bold and proud, huh? Well, that means this is our homework, isn't it? That is our responsibility to go and read the Constitution of our country. It may be void of Abantu, but it remains important for us to make sure that we know what is entailed in it. Before I hand over to Professor Latachan Littis, I'm going to read out the address by SRC President of CUT's Bloemfontein campus, Thabo Mofokeng. He says, I greet the Office of the Vice Chancellor, DVCs, Dean of Students, stakeholders, guests, and CUT community at large, all protocols observed. I remain Thabo Mofokeng, the SRC President of the Central University of Technology. I'm sorry that I have to do this part. I had other obligations that I needed to attend to. NSFAS, he mentions them. He says, as you all know, that the funding for our students here in the sector is NSFAS. Every human being is deserving of the right to live in a safe place and earn a living. Even today, the global climate, many people are threatened to be robbed their homes and their basic rights. And in this pursuit to inflict pain through various means, one never feels safe. Now, the Human Rights commemorates the day in 1948 that the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Today we celebrate the 29th anniversary of Human Rights Day. This year also marks the anniversary of the enactment of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, which gives a clear expression to our democratic ideals of creating a non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous society. Human rights is a significant day on our national calendar of events and is relevant to all, for we can be rest assured that human and fundamental rights and freedom are enjoyed by many around the world. It also belongs to all of us. I'm also interpreting somewhere here, so please excuse me. Ladies and gentlemen, it is generally acknowledged that all humans are born free and that they are equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason, conscience, and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Human rights seek to educate all South Africans about their human rights and obligations and make them aware of government services and programs which give effect to ensuring that their human rights become a lived reality. As I conclude my address, let us all be mindful that the realization of human rights can never be the sole responsibility of government. All of us must play our part in promoting human rights, the promotion of democracy, a good governance, and the rule of law, which is the best guarantee of our own security and that of our country as a whole. Our former president once said, "Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one another." With these words, I thank you. It's a beautiful address there by the SRC president for CUT's Bloemfontein campus. Give him another round of applause. It's time for me to make way for Professor Latis Latachan. We're almost at the end, actually nearing the thanks for today's gathering. Professor Latachan is a research professor in research education and postgraduate development at the Central University of Technology. Completed his doctoral studies at the University of the Free State in philosophy 1992, in theology in 1995, and community health in 2021. He has an extensive background in senior and executive management as a former dean, research responsible for research development, dean responsible for research and innovation, and senior director responsible for research development and postgraduate studies. He has a very long bio as well, a man of many accomplishments. Let us welcome him to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Do you need to stand up just for 1 minute? But don't leave the room. Please do so if you want to. See, this is just time for me to get prepared. Thank you so much, my friends. And see the difficult task of an acting voice coach. You must see that the speakers are in good order. So thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I'm the person that's standing between your question and answer session, but also the end of the program. So I thought I can be very short, or I can use some more time for us to absorb the wonderful ideas that we've already engaged in. But let me thank you for being here this morning. Let me thank the Transformation Office for inviting me, and I will honor the 15 minutes plus 1 more minute, so 16 minutes. So I was thinking when I prepared, and what I'm going to share with you this morning is the 5th edition of my speech, because I thought my first speech will be on what is human rights, but then we had the philosopher here. So thank you very much again, Prof, for really explaining to us the spirit of Ubuntu in human rights. Then I said to myself, but how do we make it practical, and by identifying the challenges in our society? Then we already had other speakers that pointed out in all corners of life what are the challenges regarding human rights. So I thought, let me share with you my speciality area that is looking in elderly care. And then I said to myself, but you'll be think I'm speaking on behalf of that group. So I said, no, let me try out a fourth attempt. And the attempt this morning, you will see there on the screen, is where I'm reflecting on where this university is with regard to its research relevant for human rights. Now, having said that, as I also completed philosophy training, am I right to say the first thing you learn a philosophy student is that you must read very attentively. So I looked at my assignment, and how do you look at your assignment? There was an invitation, so it was a delineated topic, and then you will see there are other people, and my instruction was on the one hand to be a bit reflective on some of their thoughts, hence the additional 1 minute, and then also to project my own idea. So I'm going to combine these two activities. Now you will see the way in which I've prepared my slide is on the one hand to find a grounding for a particular comment, and then on the other hand to try to identify what is it that I want to share with you. Now, first of all, if you want to ask where this university is regarding its human rights research, you need to go to a database. And the databases I selected is representative of 6 years from 2016 to 2021. And I've looked at 4 categories: journals, conference proceedings, books, and chapter in books. And if you add up the numbers, you will see they are quite extensive, more than 1,500 recordings. So you have this long list, but unfortunately time was not on my side to read 1,500 articles or book chapters or conference proceedings. Hence, I had to identify another way to identify what is then appropriate for what it is I would like to share with you. And that's why the lesson in philosophy, you go back to the invitation, we've listened to the Human Side Initiative, what is the essence? So we've identified words, but at the same time, I've also identified additional words that may give us a better understanding. And there you'll see the words selected: dignity, peace, humanity, Ubuntu, vulnerability, human rights. So with those 6 words, I went to the databases of 1,500 words, and then I picked up something very interesting, that in the engineering education, any engineers amongst us? Thank you very much. Very often the word vulnerability will be used, but it's not necessarily in a human sense. It's more in a technical sense. So having looked at those papers, I've decided to exclude them for now. So looking at the 6 indexes, looking at the basis, let's see what the results are. Remember now the two-fold presentation, the grounding on the one side and then on the other side. I've picked up that only 6 publications out of a databases of more than 1,500 somehow fits into the broader discussion on human rights. And at the very same time, there's a new book published, and from chapter 9 of that book, I've taken a very interesting topic: her son, never mind. So somehow it tells that we are blaming another person of robbing me from my human rights, but I'm never blamed that I robbed another person from his or her human rights. This is the first thing that we pick up. Then the second thing is a typical power play, and that is very often gender-based. But if you look at those 6 articles, then I dig deeper into them to ask, what can we now learn from human rights and the way that we are trying to deal with it at this university. Now, first of all, before I make the interpretation, I went to the website of the Human Rights Commission, and there are two interesting documents. I invite you all to go and read it. First of all, the report published for 2021 and 2022. And then there's a release, I couldn't find it for the other years, but at the beginning of 2018, there was a release to say what were the biggest challenges the year before. And they will note what were the biggest challenges. And to a certain extent, we can all link those challenges to a kind of a power balance coupled with physical action. And this is a serious issue that I think we need to consider. Then again, from the Human Rights Commission, reading the 2021, 2022, three more things were said that are challenging our human rights. One, we have been a bit silent on that topic this morning, is COVID-19, or let's say the pandemic. To a certain extent, everyone around the world was challenged with this pandemic, and you know, all discussions we had in our country, how do you once again see, and I'm repeating this word, the power play that we so often experience. Then the Commission also said serious issues corruption, and they linked it to the state capturing reports. So corruption, it may be far from you, but it has a direct impact on you. Think of service delivery. Do I need to say more? Not perhaps a face you know, you can't put a face or a person or a gender to it, but you experience every day how your human rights are being violated because of corruption. And then the third one, and I think this is what Vice Chancellor Acting also referred to, is that we have to extend our look at human rights issues. He, in his introduction, Professor Key, for example, referred in the agreement with the Human Rights Commission, we must also look at ecological issues. And this is the thing I also would like to highlight, that the Human Rights Commission says poor infrastructure is seriously challenging our human rights. Just think of the roads. You don't have to go to the roads in a small town for the distance you have to travel. Let's just look at the community surrounding our campus. I think you'll all agree with me. Whether you walk or drive, it's equally bad. So this is also impacting on how we are living. Now, with all those knowledges, I'm back at the interpretation of our own research, and let me just share two or three important things with you. First of all, we note from the published record that now it's primarily languages, and this was said also this morning, the big challenge of language. That's why in a context, people look at languages. And then we also look at how we are caring for people, and the one publication specifically look at elderly care. So it may sound very academic, but this is the point I would like to drive. If you look at the classification categories of educational subject matters, then it is not evident in our entire curriculum. And this is what we've also heard this morning. A sensitivity regardless the disciplines that you are studying. And now the path of philosophy will agree with me. Sometimes they think the discussion, thinking about human rights is primarily a human sciences activity. But what we need from what I've shared with you is in health sciences, is engineering sciences, is in management sciences. You also need to have a deeper understanding of these issues. Then what is also important, and this I think we need to look at, is that as a university of technology, we are ideally suited to look at applied research. And I think you'll agree with me, dear students and staff, this is what we desperately need, to bring our ideas into action. We have a good understanding, we have good comprehension. This morning was a perfect illustration of the intellectual capacity we have on this matter. But it's now time for us to go over to action. And that's why the two things I've highlighted in yellow specifically, it's time that we consider whatever we are doing, how relevant is our activities in building a human rights society. And then also linked to that is that I think all of us, regardless who you are, we are in search of quality of living and being existence. We need the quality of living and being. Now that I've said that, let me then round off to say, I think that I'm so glad acting Vice Chancellor is here for his passion for it and also his good understanding of the challenges that we need to look beyond what we are currently doing. And we have to ask, but how can we use our academic activities with teaching and learning, research and innovation to apply them to make our society more livable and an expression of the quality of life and also of existence. So we need to take the knowledge, the skills we have, we need to take it to where we work, where we live, where we socialize. I think, and I'm not sure if there's anyone at this very moment in attendance from the Transformation Office. It's a wonderful initiative this day, but I think we need continuous discussion on this topic. We need lived experiences. You know, it's like your birthday. You shouldn't be a member that you are celebrating your birthday only once a year. It must be a regular reminder. We are approaching your birthday. And of course, they can do that gift whilst they are reminding you. There's nothing wrong with that noble idea. And then the last two things that I want to say, yes, in higher education, by means of the profile, we deal primarily with young adults, but we need, and this is the word I've used there, intergenerational justice for various generations. And then I hope you will all support me that even as a university, we are not looking only inwards towards our own needs, but also we look beyond our own needs. And I'm not sure if you know, but at the moment, the elderly community, people above 60 years, is the most compromised community in the country at the moment, based on official reports from government. So somehow we must also see how can we make society better for other people, in particularly the elderly. Having said that, I believe there may be some questions, but remember, more than questions and answers are the action that we need to take back to our societies. Thank you for being a wonderful audience and at least looking at it.
Thank you very much, Professor Latakhan, for that research-centric take on human rights and how the CUT aims to do its bit to restore dignity and humanity to citizens of the country. It's now time for me to open the floor for questions. And I set a bit of the ground rules. I'm going to go in sessions of 3 questions each. We pose it to the panelists if you have a question, if it's not a commentary, and back to the floor for 3 questions, and back to the panelists. Ready? There we go. For question number 1. Anyone else? Gentleman in the gray and in the beige. We'll start with you. Tiamo.
I just wrote down my notes so I can
Please
be brief.
introduce yourself.
My name is Tiamo Malachi. I'm a first year student. I was previously a student at the University of the Free State. I participated in the Integrated Transformation Plan. I was a member, student assistant at the Institutional Gender Equity Office. I also worked closely with their Institutional Transformation Office for a period of about 4 to 5 years. So this is something that I have a lot of experience doing from a student perspective, not from a power breaker perspective. Okay, I wrote my notes so I could be brief, but I could also say a bit before I get to my question. So the question you actually asked us was what CUT should be doing as an institution. So my experience with institutions is one, they have rules that are set by state or larger power breakers than them that they cannot abandon. For instance, a qualification authority will determine whether or not a university's degree will be valid. You know, they cannot change those rules. Their hands are tied there. Two, there are rules that are set by the labor market. For South African universities, we operate as market-based institutions that are meant to ensure people can be employable. So as long as the framework of someone must get a job is kept intact in institutions listen to the market in designing their programs, their curricula, but even the functioning of the university itself. So I mean, one option is we could just have non-capitalist institutions, but that's a conversation for another time. But for now, let's just presume that our hands are tied there as well. Then I think the 2 areas of transformation, which is where we can have leeway. There's local power breakers. These are directors, rectorate, residence managers, SRC, etc. Basically, summarize what they say goes. And then the second area are loose rules set by traditions, doing what's always done. So I mean, these are the suggestions. First, we should be open to new ideas, not just tradition. And this doesn't just apply to power breakers at the top from rectorate. It even goes down to the political class of students, SRC sometimes acting as power breakers amongst us as students. I appreciated the presentation on the historiography of frameworks of human rights and how it has always propagated through exclusion, whether it's women excluded, whether people excluded on the basis of race. There's always been this exclusion factor to historical frameworks. So traditions have also been propagated through exclusion. So we should always try to abandon the insistence on tradition itself for the sake of it. There should be a logic and justification of inclusion, and it should be universal inclusion in the real sense, not universal in the lip service sense. Secondly, I think we should also see these issues as transcending the individual, and that's why I appreciated the commentary on Ubuntu and the erasure of Ubuntu from frameworks of rights. It seems as if the predominant response when an institution wants to make itself better is to design its response approaches. If there's an individual violation, we respond to that violation that the individual has experienced. So there's a address or a redress. Maybe a sexual violation, for instance. Do we have systems in place to support a sexual survivor, a survivor of sexual assault or rape or other injustice? Then the institution will spend a lot of resources on response, and that response will be based on what they can identify as an individual violation. But the institution is not changing structure, culture that causes those violations in the first place. Now, some of that obviously occurs before someone gets to the institution, but obviously that culture propagates here, and it's very rare that an institution wants to put their hands on that. I mean, some of the reasons I've seen for that is you don't get anything out of it. Maybe you're just an employee of the institution, you're not getting paid to address culture, but you do have to address a specific violation. But secondly, some of the power breakers don't want certain cultures to change. They're happy with it. Okay, so then I thought that's why the final suggestion here, we should pilot a subtle decentralization of certain powers. How can a regular student, for instance, compete with the political class of students who are members of political associations or SRC? They can't. At the end of the day, it's going to be the politicized students of the SRC, what they say goes, in terms of the student component of power. Then in terms of like the academic component, it's going to be whoever's the director or the dean or the head of that department, what they say goes, effectively. Then for the institution, generally speaking, it's going to be whoever's at the top, rectorate, what they say goes. So one can pilot, it's not an extreme anarchist model, but perhaps trying to decentralize power in certain areas and see how that works and see if you create a better human rights environment. Because you will sacrifice some of your power, but you'll gain community. But I find that the power breakers don't want to do that. So I guess now I can go to my question after I've done that overview. And my question is on power specifically. I want to find out from
If you want to direct.
anyone who wants to answer. What are the thoughts on this idea? There's one person at the top, and someone else, and someone else, and someone else. Because if that maintains, then that culture of exclusion is going to propagate from what the person at the top says. Because what they say goes. And if they want to exclude women from their framework of human rights, because they have the power in space, they exclude it. If the head of the SRC is problematic in any way, there's going to be human rights violations. So if the power broker has issues, the entire framework has issues. The entire institution has issues. So I wonder tangibly, and we were speaking a bit about vulnerability in the last presentation, that those vulnerable actors are never the power breakers. They're never the ones who make the decisions and decide what the environment looks like. So how could we make the vulnerable become the power breakers? How could we turn it on its top so that it's not those who have little vulnerabilities who decide what the human rights framework of an institution looks like? That's my question.
Can I take that question and direct it to either Prof. Kitty or Prof. Martin? Whoever wants to answer that. Gentleman in the gray, second question.
Thank you, Madam Facilitator. Greetings to the event facilitator. Greetings to Mr. Prof. Ramos, our guest speaker, and greetings to the professors and the guest speakers, and greetings to the house at large. My name is Samtana Sinyang. Mine is on to leadership only. I'm only interested in leadership. I have said to many people that in our country we need leaders in politics, not politicians in politics, because what we've seen over the years, starting from what we call epochal transition, when Dr. Nelson Mandela took over, and then that transition was no longer there, hence epochal. So on that day, would it be right for me to say, as someone that's still growing in leadership, that the difference that I see between a leader and a politician, that yes, we do need leaders in politics, not politicians in politics, because what we see is politicians being self-serving when it comes to the position of power. So if then that would be right, or if it would be wrong, would you then, in your own terms, please explain to me or to us, what would it take for me to be a leader if ever I would be in politics, if ever we have to apply Ubuntu in politics, so that when the policy making calls, or when the constitution creation calls, or when the constitution modification calls, or when the policy modification calls, that I would be the right person, that I would not leave Ubuntu behind when that has to be done by me and those that are with me. Thank you.
Prof, can I get your name again, please?
Siamthanda Sinyanya.
Gentleman in the beige.
Greetings to the house at large. I go by the name of Bogam Matbago. I've noted 2 questions to the panel. I think my first question is, in what ways can the principle of Ubuntu be used to address systematic injustice and promote social change? My last question is, what are some of the examples on how the philosophy of Ubuntu has been put into practice to promote dignity, peace, and humanity in our communities? Thank you.
Very much. I'm going to start with Siamo's commentary. He gave 4 comments. I'm going to pose to either Professor Kitty or Professor Bakula. I'm not sure who wants to take it. You want to
Question from the panel.
Vulnerability has 2 sides. One side, I'm exposed. The other side is I can be dominated or I dominate. And you see the two flavors. And we need in this society, this is my view, because I've seen the import, we need a mind change. And how do we do that mind change? this is that we have to meet one another as equal human beings. And this is the point that we need to do. It's a commitment that we need to have towards one another. And this is the commitment we must take on ourselves to say, I want to do something to change your world, your society, and you must do something to change my world, my society. And I can make it a very long argument. I can ground it in what is called care ethics. Care ethics means in the moment. How do we find one another? What is the kind of relationship that we have? But what I haven't seen in my 50 years plus, that commitment of everyone to say, I want to meet you, the uniqueness of you. And this is what we must all commit to. I want to meet the uniqueness of you, and you'll be meeting the uniqueness of me. This is the way that we then are looking out for other people's vulnerability and assistance. So if I can summarize everything I said, what we need, listen carefully, not more legislation. We need only one thing, personal commitment. As an individual, I must personally commit myself to another person. This is what I'm feeling all along. In my talk, in my other advocacies, that commitment must come from me. And in philosophical sense, I, wherever the I is, with you or me, must take that first step. And I think this is the way, in my view, how one can address vulnerabilities.
Satisfied? Okay. Moving on to the question posed by Siam Tandaza Sinyanya. He was looking squarely at Professor Mukhopi the whole time. So that one was clearly for you, Professor. He wants to know, he was wanting you to weigh in on Ubuntu and leadership, how he can become a leader. Is that what you're saying? Have I captured the essence?
Thank you. Thanks very much for the question. And if I may be permitted the aside, actually, I noticed that some of you do already have African philosophy from Ubuntu. So if you would like for me to autograph that, I will be available to you on the time after. Well, Elida, I'm going for the sake of time to answer you by way of telegram. I was surprised one time when I mentioned the word telegram. Some people in the audience did not know what a telegram is. So I will replace that with a byte. And a byte is very painful. And at the same time, it's a byte with BI and another byte with BY. So I will use both. One of the points about leadership, very straightforward, but very difficult. Now, you became quite specific and decided to confine that to the sphere of politics, political leadership. See, before anyone is a politician, that person is a human being. I have the suspicion that no single human being takes her or his own life for granted. I doubt if human beings simply don't care about my life. You know, you can see an ant, for example, it's a very small, but if you try to kill it, did you see what it is doing? Almost always running away because it doesn't want to be. So, by that, I want to suggest that the right to life is a very fundamental and inalienable right. Just the right to live. Why is it so? Well, you know, every other right revolves around that right to life. It must not be understood in the sense of whether the someone in the womb may be killed or not. Sometimes the literature talks the language of the right to life in that direction. I'm talking about the right to life that you and I at least live in have life. Interesting point is that not you, not me, no one in the room actually had the opportunity beforehand to decide, to share in the decision. Where shall I be born? When shall I be born? By who? There is no metaphysical consultation. You just are. You don't know the reason why you are black and not white, yellow, or blue. Neither do I. So we are equal. So I'm talking about that sort of right in the ontological sense of it. Now, once you accept that equality, you already have responsibility to the other because the other also has got the same equal right that you have. Once you accept that, then you will know that as a political leader, your first duty and assignment is to make sure that the life of the other is preserved and protected and promoted because you want the same thing. We don't need the Bible for this. Jesus doesn't have teachers. Okay? So you have to have. But we know that we are living in a so-called historical context. Now, history can disturb this vision, and it has disturbed it. It is not only that it has disturbed its vision. Come closer because what I'm going to say now is simply, you know, when you want to identify a political leader, it's not so much what she or he says that you must be careful about. One of the essential questions you must ask is what is his or her attitude towards money and wealth? Ask that. Because this, according to the Western philosophy of money, has destroyed ancient Athens. Okay? Continues to destroy us until today. That is why we talk about corruption. So you have to ask, what is the attitude? Not in speech, but in practice. What is the attitude of this person towards money? If you cannot satisfy yourself on that, know that you are running the risk. You are running a big risk of allowing corruption to thrive because those people will be without discipline when it comes to the acquisition and accumulation of wealth and money. That having been said, you must also get to another question because a leader thinking in terms of the life of the other is simultaneously thinking in terms of his or her own life. So you said person now I'm going to again. We have a problem in northern Sudan stating that Wakot Bamrit see Baduti Bao, meaning if you're busy planting a tree, don't insist that you should be the one to enjoy sitting under the shade of the tree when it has grown. Don't insist. Now you find the same statement in Southern Sudan, the same problem in Southern Sudan at the State Legal Institute in King Williamstown. And we all know that Steve Biko was more than ready to give up his own life for the sake of giving life to others. You have to be able to test that possibility. You cannot prove it, but you must test it out. The life of anybody is a serious matter. So you have to test if this person would be willing to really go all the way and say, I'm without the time. So that I show you certain things. It's what we call political martyrdom. Politics is not a dirty game. Politics is potential a holiday. For you to find elaboration of this, because I'm gonna stop now, you can study the text of Sobrino. It is called The Spirituality of Liberation. But the subtitle is directly to your point. The subtitle is Toward Political Holiness. It is possible to be holy when you engage yourself in politics. It's not dirty game. It is possible to be holy when you become engaged in politics, provided you take those two considerations in mind. I am not sure if some of you are aware that former President Kirel, like many other founders of African liberation, was a Christian, but he happened to be a Catholic. Now there is a process to declare him a saint. Okay? So you can be holy politically. I do hope the process will be completed and Julius Nyerere will be declared a saint politically. It is possible. Thank you.
It's the only question for Siam Tandas is what's your attitude to money and wealth?
Yes.
Volkan, help me out with your question. You said, in what ways can the principles of Ubuntu?
It is what ways can the principles of Ubuntu be used to address systematic injustice and promote social change?
Just repeat it out loud.
In what ways can the principles of Ubuntu be used to address systematic injustice and promote social change?
Thank you, sir. You see, one thing we should really understand philosophically and also is the following. It is that you might have noticed if you check chapter 3 of the book that I actually suggest that Ubuntu is a philosophy of ness. Suffix ness is crucial to understand Ubuntu. Ness. Ness is present continuous tense, right? It means Ubuntu is open to things happening all the time. And out of those things grow something to which we can identify. Say, now we identify. In other words, ism like capitalism, dogmatism are just philosophically contradictory to the philosophy of Ubuntu. Okay? So you don't even have an instrument. Like it is an the next dimension of Ubuntu tells you that at a particular historical moment, this is what is required. How do you respond to that? Now that should lead me to a very fundamental point. In this country, we go again to politics, but for me, ethics precedes politics. There is first ethics and then politics. So law is a creature of politics and not vice versa. Okay? So what do we have? For a long time, this country functioned on the principle of parliamentary supremacy. Parliament was supreme. Okay? When black people are about to form part of the political dispensation, then there is a problem, which was not present in the 1983 Constitution. What is the problem? There are too many of them. What are we going to do if we have parliamentary supremacy? How do we put them in prison? So we abolish parliamentary supremacy and we institute constitutional supremacy. So the Constitution becomes the god of politics. This way of reasoning is directly contradictory to Ubuntu because it undermines the ness part of Ubuntu. Ubuntu does not reject constitution making. It does not. There have been lots of ways of living in terms of Ubuntu. What Ubuntu does not subscribe to is fixation to a specific idea, the creation of a false god, which makes this impossible to engage in present continuous. So you can see that actually the transition to constitutional supremacy was purely a tactical way of continuing the exclusion and domination, which was, if that is not true, why did this not happen in the 1983 Constitution, only in the 1986? So you see, these are examples to say Ubuntu is replying to concrete historical conditions, but on an ethical basis. I hope you got the point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've been told I have to wrap up, but I have space for about 2 more questions for the second round. There's one hand that's going up, and there's a second hand going up. Thank you. Let's start. Please give your name and then give your question.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Mandim Tela. At the Teaching and Learning Division. This is my boss. Now, I just like to thank you very much for the discussions I followed, and I am inspired. And also by all the, if you listen to all the speakers that were saying at the end, let's focus on action. Speeches, but we don't do anything to say now. How do you put an action plan in place as a team, not only the university, both students and the employees of CUT, so that now next year when you reflect, you need to say, on this date when we were commemorating, these were the issues that were raised, this is how we implemented them. That will assist us to move forward. But I just like to check now from the student community, how many students do we have in here? Maybe they can just lift up their hands, the students.
We can't hear you.
Okay. Okay, here. Oh, let me stand. I'm sorry. So now the second question is to say, the first part I was just saying we need to put an action plan in place because all the speakers were saying we need to do something, not just to get information. But say now, today we met, we are commemorating. What are the actions that we are going to put in place as a CUT community? Because we are employees, we are students, we belong to CUT. That is the first part. And the second part, I was just saying the students should raise their hands. Now, just like to find out from the students that are here, can one student stand up to tell us about the values of CUT? The CUT core values. Just stand up, one student to tell us about this values of CUT. Just want to check. Just one student. I don't want to choose. I just want to say, yeah, at the CUT values. And just sing them. Let's hear from you. I see you're saying someone must say. Let's hear from you. What are they? Can you tell us? Oh, okay. Yes.
I'm just mentioning them. I'm not explaining them.
Exactly.
This is Ubuntu. Yes. Integrity. Innovation.
Excellence. Yes. Now those are our values. But the first one is Ubuntu. That's why this gathering to say now how do you live Ubuntu? And when you go to the CUT website, they explained what are they, what is the meaning of Ubuntu. How do you contextualize that as CUT community? So now you understand. Now I'm pleased to say you are here, live the values of CUT because that's what determines the culture. You don't say the culture is doing this and this. When professors, you see them sitting there, you say, as CUT community, this is how we practice Ubuntu. This is how we practice excellence. Because if we say you come here, you finish, if your course is 4 years, you finish in 4 years and you go, you give space to the others. And when you go outside, when you're in the mall, you leave Ubuntu. When you're in, there's a mall here. When you are staying at Willows, you leave Ubuntu. People must say, but this student is different. Where are you studying? Are you still a student? Where are you studying? At CUT, I can see the way you're handling yourself. You don't say, if you do not know where you're going, any road will take you there. I listened to the speaker from Human Rights when he was asking, do you know about the Constitution? At times, if you listen to Professor Lategan, his last question, when he was talking about vulnerability, to say, do to others as you want them to do unto you. Because at times you just wake up, they say it's national strike, and you just go and join without knowing what is the rights of the rights of others. To say, let's say leaders are leaders. We are preparing leaders of tomorrow. There's a paper on the floor, you pick it up, you read. Maybe saying they are going to bomb your house tomorrow. You don't even know because you just jump the paper. Let's go and be leaders of tomorrow, not only focusing on mechanical engineer. Be a mechanical engineer, but be broad. Know what is happening by reading, especially the values of CUT. Our Vision 2030, you must know it by heart. You must not say, I was at CUT, I'm looking for a job somewhere, and then when they ask, what is the vision of that company? They nobody say, when you apply to a company, look at the vision, look at the mission, and the values. To say, I want to belong to this team. If you say, now, oh, these values are not mine, I didn't grow up like that from home, you don't even apply. Don't waste your time.
Thank you, Program Director. My name is Nikki. From Wellness, psychologist.
Can hear you.
Can't get it. Oh, so my name is Simniki. Simniki Fan. I'm from Wellness Center here in Bloemfontein campus. And my question is directed to Prof. I think Prof has answered the first part of the question which I had, which was related to the critique years of the institution. It's a very interesting critique in the sense that I think when we respond to some of the questions we elaborated on that the ease of the constitution makes it exclude the exclusionary in terms of Ubuntu, and also the truth which is lacking in the Constitution. So one of the things we note when Considis was opening the talk was speaking about the 21st of March as it being the Sharpeville Massacre Day. But strange, we celebrate it as Human Rights Day. You see, so this notion of truth and a contested idea of what even the day represents. So that's the first comment in relation to the Constitution. And the second comment is related on the idea of being a human. So one of the questions you posed, Prof, was that who and what is human? And this is a very important question if we think of it also in relation to the developed method theory of Afro-pessimism. So the theory that would say even the idea of human is not organic as we think of it. It's a social construction. So it's constructed in a sense that the others are human, others are not human. So then in that space, it becomes not natural or organic as we think of it. So my question to you is that I've not had a conversation yet between the philosophy of Ubuntu and the theory of Afro-pessimism. And I don't know if you have a take on that in terms of how do we read Afro-pessimism in relation to the theory of the philosophy of Ubuntu. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Again, you please permit me to answer you by way of telegram. Thank you. Well, what really is it that is not socially constructed? But you see, the word constructed itself is already telling the story. It is co-constructed with another. You build something. Okay? No one builds without any building material. No one. You need a building material to build whatever. Okay? So, in this case, human is the material. Okay? You might have had a point made by my colleague that if you actually remove human rights, what is the human being left with? That speaks in part to the legal doctrine called essential features doctrine. And there are many people who actually criticize so-called essentialism. You see something, okay? Now please take into account what is said about less in relation so that you don't. When you take that into account, you will see that when we say motu, imotu, kabad, there are even contestations over that. Because one group would like to interpret that in the way of it. Okay? And because you are, we are because. Right. That's why there is a very close friend and colleague of me, Benedict Bucho, will do it another way. By way of criticizing Descartes. Descartes cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Now, Bucho challenges that cognatus sum ergo sum. I am related, therefore we are. You see the point? Now the tensions are heavy. I cannot, in this short time, really go into nuanced detail. once you take serious motto to cover, then you will see the academics of what we call Afro hating. It's purely academic. It's of academic interest, but it has no liberty content. That is the problem.
On that note, let's give it a round of applause. Gosh, we're wrapping up. We're almost done. I'm going to thank Dr. Solani Potso. He's the Curriculum and Academic Staff Developer at the Center for Innovation and Learning, and I think he's going to conclude today's events for us.
Phambili ngobuntu phambili. Forward with peace forward. Phambili nge-humanity phambili. Forward with student dignity forward. Forward with staff dignity forward. Chairperson of the session, our lovely facilitator, Miss Olibofang Motse, acting Vice Chancellor, Prof. Ngidi, the DVC, Resource and Operations, unfortunately it's gone, Dr. Derek Paul, Dean of the Faculty of Management Sciences, gone as well, Student Representative Council, team members of staff present here and online, of course, student body at large, our lovely panel, Prof. Ramose, Prof. Zwaki Malebo, Prof. Lithathan, Mr. Tabang Keswa, Miss Matitiso Lebata. We greet you warmly and thank you very much for ensuring that this program of today is a success. Chair of the session, as the background has been laid about Human Rights Day celebration, in the opening remarks by the Vice Chancellor acting, and intense deliberations on a program about the concept of Ubuntu, or the theme of the day, which speaks to 4 values: the concept of Ubuntu, humanity, dignity, and peace. This is a privilege to the institution to consider the significance of celebrating this day of human rights, and the democratic government designated the 21st of March as the day to celebrate human rights in South Africa, to remember and honor those who fought for our liberation and the rights that we now enjoy, that we now have. It is now, it remains our responsibility to continue with the legacy of celebrating this day and the privilege to commemorate and ensure that this month of celebration conveys a message, or a strong message, to the institute and the society at large, in order to ensure our best, to ensure how our best rights are being observed, are being respected, and are being honored, particularly when we speak about the rights of everyone equal before the law, has right to equal protection and the benefits of the law. Everyone has an inherent dignity and have their dignity respected and protected. Everyone has the right to use language and to participate in cultural life of the choice of their choices. I was touched, Mr. Keswa spoke about the issue of language as a key. You know, I'm one of the people who are activists on African languages, to an extent that I took a decision to leave and to lead in this particular area by writing my whole PhD thesis in isiZulu without any English word in it. I tell you, it was like I'm writing a dissertation
spend money, chairperson, on hosting such gatherings. We talk about institutional renewal, curriculum decolonization, Africanization of curriculum, and we are not doing anything. It is a challenge of it that CUT should form part of the institutions that are going to produce academics that are going to have capacity to write in their mother tongue, in Spain, in Swana. We want all those publications, we want all those presentations to be there. Against this background, ladies and gentlemen, kindly allow me to express my gratitude for everyone in attendance, staff and students, as well as those who contributed to the success of this event, particularly the Institutional Renewal and Transformation Unit led by Prof. Makola, who is not here today, in collaboration with Center for Innovation in Learning and Teaching led by Professor Malebo, as well as the local organizing committee led by our very own capable Mr. Wiseli Bungampeni. He works tirelessly to ensure that anything that you are preparing becomes a success. You send him an email within a minute, he's responding. I'm sure in our guest speakers, they will tell you. The competency is of a high level indeed. And then for everyone who have sacrificed their own substantive responsibilities and labor obligations within this time as we were preparing for this particular program. We wish to formally convey our appreciation and thanks to our panel for contributing and for dedicating the time and come to this particular program. Our lovely facilitator, thank you very much, Ms. Motse from OFM. I'm sure you guys are listening to it. I'm sure you are familiar with her. If you are not, today is your lucky day. You have to celebrate your man. So when we go outside, take photographs and what. Thank you very much, Prof. Ramos from the University of Victoria and my home, where I'm coming from. Thank you very much. He worked a lot with his faculty of law. Thank you very much for your contribution today. And Prof. Malebo, my boss and Senior Director for Center for Innovation in Learning and Teaching. Prof. Thank you very much for your contribution. And the SRC President, Mr. Tabo Moipela, who is currently not with us, for the speech that he sent, and also Ms. Matitiso Nibata, thank you very much. And our very own man who has signed the MOU with us, Mr. Tabanke Sosiabonga Kolubaba, for your contribution and for your attendance. A special appreciation, DVC, for attending and staying with us. We know how busy your office and your schedule is, and we appreciate the fact that you managed to sit with us the entire program. As we are now wrapping up, we do not take that lightly. To this end, as CUT, we wish to re-emphasize, Mr. Keswa, that we are committed to the provisions of our constitution and our institutional renewal mandate to encourage and build an institutional environment that respects each and every person's right. Thank you very much, colleagues. And I think Bunga has prepared lunch for us. So after we say amen, we will then proceed. Bunga, I think you can how are we going to she shares information. Thank you very much.
So I have been told that refreshments for everyone are in here. Just make your way out this way. Our distinguished guests make their way to the Zedek Mahavani building where they will have refreshments there. Thank you so much to everyone. It has been a pleasure being a part of this.